Good afternoon, everyone. So 15 years ago, yes, 15 years ago, I graduated law school, and over the past 15 years, I've had the tremendous ability to work in many different capacities. After law school, I worked for a big firm in New York City. From there, I had two of my own businesses, a law practice and a consulting company. I worked for an entrepreneur who had a small family-run business, but it touched throughout the world. I also worked for major corporations. And as I reflected on that journey, I thought, what were some of the most important things? As a woman, as an entrepreneur, I've worked for companies, I've had my own business, but what is it that was most important? And I realized that there were relationships I didn't know that I needed. And so I want to share some of those with you in hopes that it will help you on your journey, whether you're starting your career at 24 like I was, working at the firm, or whether you're 39 like I am now and an independent consultant and community advocate. There are relationships that happen throughout your journey that are really important, but a lot of times we don't pay attention to them. Being an entrepreneur, to me, is less about the business. Most people wouldn't think that because the definition is you start a business, it's an idea, a concept, a design, something that you've created, something that's your baby, and you take this and you want to build a profit, and you take on all the risk associated with it. But what if I shared with you that being an entrepreneur has less to do with the business and more to do with one specific thing, and that's you. One person that makes a difference, and that's you. And that's what I realized. Entrepreneurship is a journey of ebbs and flows. It's up and down, just like our lives. It's not consistent, it's not static, it ebbs and flows. And what I learned is that it actually has to do more with where you are instead of the business that you're running. So let's go back to 2005. When I was in New York City working for a top firm, it was a true blessing. I came out of law school at 24. I was making six figures. I remember at that time it was January, and all of a sudden all the firms, they always compete. And so we woke up one morning and our pay went up $20,000. Imagine being 24 years old, first generation, to go to college, never mind go to law school. And you went from making $145 to $165 overnight. It was like hitting the jackpot. But you know, New York can be a very lonely place. As many people that are there, it can also be very lonely. And I remember I was there one night, I was working, we had a closing the next day, and everyone was like, oh, you're so bubbly and happy, it's so late at night, but I'm generally an upbeat, happy person. But I was kind of struggling a bit in New York. It was a great job, I was doing all these wonderful things, but I just felt like there was something more. And that night, the light went off. We were standing there, we all got our assignments for the next day. And my assignment was to go home and maybe get 2 hours of sleep, and then come back the next morning and make sure that I had all of the paperwork lined up so that the CFO of this company could sign on the proper line next to his name. Now, we all went to school, right? We all learned how to write our names, and you think we would know how to sign on the dotted line next to our name. And I thought to myself, you're young, you're brilliant, you're making all this money, and your task is to make sure that the CFO signs on the dotted line. Why can't you be the CFO? And my mind shifted. Why am I here? Why am I doing this now? Somebody has to do it, but why am I doing it? I felt like there was so much more for me. I wanted to be the CEO. I wanted to be the CFO. I could do it. I had the capacity to do it. And so, you know, as I thought about it, I got a phone call from a woman named Louise West. And anyone in the entertainment industry knows Louise is like the grandmother of the music business, especially the hip hop business. She helped guide and counsel and start the careers of Timberland, Missy Elliott, Jay-Z, Kanye West. She's amazing. I met Louise through my journey attending BSLA, the Black Entertainment and Sports Lawyers Association conference. I started going when I was in law school. And I got a phone call from Louise now, having worked at the firm, and we kept in touch and built a relationship. And she said, Louise, Yes, she's Big Louise, I'm Little Louise. So she said, Louise, I'm looking for somebody to come help. I have a group that I'm working with. I need to do some employment contracts, some trademarks, some copyrights. And I know you know a lot of people. So, if you could put the word out there, send me some good people. I was like, there is a God. I said, Louise, I know I have the right person for you. Oh my gosh, this is great. I said, it's me. I'm the right person. I'm trying to leave this firm, please. And I was so grateful and so blessed to be at the law firm, and everyone there was wonderful. But I knew there was so much more for me. And she said, well, Louise, how long have you been at the firm? I said, I know. I've only been there a year, and anyone that knows big law firms and how you're supposed to do it, it's 3 to 5 years. You don't go and leave after a year. You need to be trained. They're going to put the money in to train you. No corporation is going to hire you if you're only a year out. But I didn't care, because I was going to go work with Louise and then start my own business. And so we're talking, and she says, normally I would not advise this, but I know you. I know that you're really smart. I know that you work hard. You think fast. So if you want to come, the opportunity is yours. And in that moment, I realized one of the most important relationships that I didn't realize I needed, and this holds true through the course of my life, is building relationships with people when you don't need anything from them. I had known Louise for 3 years at that point. I could have easily asked her for a job, asked her for money. I mean, the typical things that we ask for. We always have a plan. We always need something from somebody. But Louise, the godmother of the music industry, called me. She was asking me for someone to help her. And in that moment is when I needed help. And I realized that from Louise to so many other people through the course of my career, the relationships that were most helpful to me, especially as an entrepreneur, were the relationships I built when I didn't need anything. Next, let's fast forward. After that, I started my own business, worked with Louise for a bit, did start my own company, and then I ended up working with Butch Lewis at Butch Lewis Productions. He was a tremendous entrepreneur. Started in the boxing industry as a promoter, then had a joint venture with Def Jam in New York. And when I joined working with him, we actually created the first minority-owned company. It's a joint venture that we created with IMG Worldwide. Now, IMG represents a lot of golfers, tennis players, just the creme de la creme. But they didn't have a lot of minority athletes. And so we knew that we could bring that. We had the reach and the ability to do it. And so I had reached out to a lot of different folks that I knew, again, just telling them about the venture, not asking for their clients, not asking for anything, but just telling them what I was doing. So an attorney that I knew, actually from Beasla, represented a famous actress, and he said, she has a really strong team. I'm not sure if she'll be interested. I said, look, I'm not a salesperson. I'm just telling you, if she's interested, let us know. A couple weeks later, she wants to talk. So we're in LA, and we're setting up a meeting, and I go downstairs to get her to bring her up to where the meeting's gonna be. And then, of course, I'm a part of the meeting because I'm the vice president of the company, and we're talking about endorsement deals, and she wanted to do a fragrance line and a clothing line, and how we could do all this stuff in Fashion Week in New York, and it was just great. And so later, fast forward, we end up representing her, and probably several months down the road, she says to me, we're out to lunch one day, and she was like, I thought you were the summer intern when I met you. It's like, okay, that's fine, it's fair. I'm young, and a lot of people always think I'm the secretary, the assistant, the intern, totally fine. Most people aren't totally fine with that. It's actually really uncomfortable. I had worked really hard, and I'm a lawyer, and you think I'm the summer intern? But again, we had a relationship. She could say that and share that with me, which I was happy about. And I said, the second relationship I didn't realize I needed was relationships with people that underestimated me. That's actually the best one. I really like it. Because I still look really young. A lot of people think I go to Goldey Beacom, or I'm still in college. And so it's great, because what I realized is when people underestimate you, there's no expectation. So when you underestimate me and I come into the room and you think I'm just getting someone's coffee or I'm the assistant and I'm sitting there helping to write the deal, or the way that you treat me when I come in the door, whew, it changes. When you find out I'm the one that's going to argue for you and get that hopefully $1 million, but sometimes it's just many thousands. But anyway, all the zeros that you want, I'm the one making the deal happen. And so I really, really like it when people underestimate me because I can go below the radar. It's one of the best places to be. I remember working at the corporation and I was going to transition into an executive role and they said, you don't want to be an executive director, then there's a target on your back. Yes, of course you want to climb the ladder and do what you want to do, but I will tell you, the second relationship, and it meant everything to me, and probably one that I hold near and dear to my heart now, is when people underestimate me, because I know that I'm capable. I know all the schooling that I've done, but outside of that, I know my experiences, and I know what I'm capable of doing. So anytime you underestimate me, it means you really don't think I'm probably going to do much. So whatever I do is going to be great to you, but because I know I'm great, you're going to be like, wow, this is amazing. And who doesn't want that response to something that they do, right? So, yes, you definitely want to build relationships with people when you don't need anything, and you want to keep people close that underestimate you, because guess what? They become your biggest cheerleaders later. And finally, the third relationship that I didn't know I needed was actually one that connected my mind, body, and spirit. A lot of times we don't pay attention to ourselves enough, especially as women, especially as entrepreneurs. We're moms, we're daughters, we're teachers, we're co-workers, we're everything. Everybody wants us to do everything all the time, but we don't listen to ourselves. And I charge you to think about entrepreneurship again as an ebb and flow. It's something that comes and goes as you do, as your life, as your experiences change. So do you as an entrepreneur. And so on April 26, 2017, my husband was killed in the line of duty. He was the state trooper in Delaware that was killed on Route 40 at the Wawa. That moment in time when I received that phone call, and I was working for a corporation in Philadelphia at the time, I remember getting on the elevator and people are like, oh, how are you doing? Because it's just a normal day for everybody. And I was like, I think I'm okay. But I just got a call and I think my husband's been shot, so I don't really know how I'm doing. And then of course everybody's just quiet because who's expecting to hear that on the elevator? But I did. I left work and I told one of the paralegals I couldn't find my boss, and I said, you know what? Please tell Sarah that I have to go. My husband's been injured. I don't know what's happening. And I just left from there. And I will tell you, when I got to Christiana Hospital and the surgeon talked to me in a private room and said, your husband's been shot multiple times in the head and his injuries are not sustainable, but I can take you to him. And I went there and I was with him, and for those that are from Delaware or even beyond, saw the outpouring of the community and everybody that came together for my husband and for my family and for my daughter Abigail, who was 5 at the time. And I had a choice to make. I needed to think about, am I going to stay on this executive level track at this corporation? Am I going to be an executive, which means traveling a lot? Or am I going to stop and take a moment and listen to my mind, listen to my body, and listen to my spirit, listening to what God has put on my heart? I knew before my husband died, I actually wanted to transition to do community work and more philanthropic work. I didn't know that it would unfortunately be through this. But God has a funny plan for all of us. And I've started as an entrepreneur. Like I said, I've worked for small business. I've worked for major corporations. I can do whatever I want to do. You can do whatever you want to do. But I think that being an entrepreneur is less about the business. And it's more about who you are and where you are. You have to listen to your mind, your body, and your spirit and figure out what you're supposed to do now. Because what a lot of people don't know is my husband died in April, and in November I was hospitalized and diagnosed with MS. So for me to be standing here before you is a miracle. For all of 2018, while I'm grieving and trying to figure out what I'm doing for my daughter and with the community, there were days I couldn't walk. days that my feet were swollen, I couldn't even get out of bed. And how do you explain that to a 5 or 6 year old who just lost her dad violently, suddenly, and mom can't get out of bed? So what you do is you pray and you listen to your mind and to your body and to your spirit. And you think about where you started as a young lawyer, where you've gone in that ebb and flow of your journey, and you make a choice. And that choice was to walk away from the big business and to trust my heart and to know that I am an entrepreneur at spirit, in my spirit. I will forever be one no matter where I work and what I do. And that I need to trust myself and trust my journey. And I need to remember those relationships, the 3 that I've shared with you. 1, building relationships with people when you don't need anything. 2, having relationships with those that underestimate you. And 3, having a relationship with your mind, your body, and your spirit. Because trust me, when trauma hits, you will need it. You will have to depend on yourself in ways that you wouldn't think. Now, maybe you don't have something as traumatic as I did, but I can tell you that these 3 instances will help you find what are your relationships. Maybe they're the same as mine, but I want you all to leave here today thinking, what are the relationships I didn't know I needed? What was there when I was making a transition or a turn? And who am I going to be as an entrepreneur? Because it's less about the business. The business can come and go, but who are you? And who are you on that journey? And that's what I want you to think about and hold dear to your heart. Thank you.